Will AI be your guardian angel? Imagine AI helping you anticipate your well-being needs every day. A system that helps you define your optimal state and anticipates the subtle shifts that affect it, all while learning from you. But our personal data is personal. With leaks and breaches, companies with questionable ethics, and malicious actors, we need to be careful about how we share our information. So let's explore building trustworthy AI systems for our most sensitive data, because it's time that your personal data start working for your well-being. Welcome to episode 42 of Tool Use, the weekly conversation about AI tools and strategies to empower forward-thinking minds, brought to you by Netic. I'm Mike Bird, and this week we're joined by Michael Tiffany, co-founder and CEO of Fulcra, a foundational data platform for human information. Michael, welcome to Tool Use.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Pumped to have you on. Do you want to give us a little background, how you got into AI and what brought you here today?
Yeah, I really think of myself as a hacker. I belong to a transnational hacker gang called Ninja Networks, ninjas.org. Mostly known for our parties, the hacker party, the Ninja party at DEF CON was a really fun thing to do for a very long time. And I worked professionally in cybersecurity also for really quite some time. I founded a company called Human that's one of the winningest anti-botnet companies on the internet. And in that company, I was leading a team that was in many ways fighting off evil AI. Because what you want to do as a botnet operator is make 1 million computers under your control look like they're actually real people. And botnet operators got increasingly good at that. So it was a really fun spy versus spy game where the bot operators are trying to fake us out, and we're trying to actually fake them out and detect them without them realizing that they were being detected. Really fun business to grow that made us all feel good because we were literally taking the money out of crime, making cybercrime pay less well. Yeah. With Fulcra, my colleagues and I have been applying our security talents to what we think of as a foundational, like generational challenge, which is how can we build a trustworthy repo for all the data that our lives produce that is under our control. So the what we've built is cool. It is helping people see their lives in new ways. So it is useful. It turns out that your data becomes more useful when you de-silo it. So just bringing it together is empowering our customers to do cool new things. But broadly, what I'm hoping to do is create a company that's an important force for individual data sovereignty. I think we need to own our data. We need to control it. And especially individuals need to have control over whether an AI has access to their data or not, which means the repo needs to be under our individual control.
Excellent. Yeah, I find myself at this unique point where I'm very privacy and security centric. For a while now, I've made it a priority to make sure, you lock things down. But I also, with a medical science background, see vast potential for AI in the health science space by just giving it more data. So I was trying to find to walk that line. So what's the reception been like to Fulcra so far?
Well, even though I'm obviously very proud of my hacker background and the privacy by design that we've built into the system, I would say that people don't buy security features or privacy features very much. Like most of our customers are finding us and using our software because they want to get more out of their wearables or data sources, or they want to see their data in some new way. So I would say that our customers are paying us for the data transformations that are possible. The visualizations that we have created, and they trust us because of the privacy by design principles, but it's not a big buying trigger. It's maybe just a buying consideration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'm interested in, just because you're able to aggregate all these different data sources, have you come across or been told from any of your customers some unique correlations or potentially even causations from just like unique data sources that end up working well together?
Yeah. And I'm so thankful that people do show up in Discord or email us about these findings, because one of the friction points for a company like ours is because of our privacy principles, we don't necessarily know how our customers use the software, right? Like we're not seeing our customers' data. So So if we've unlocked something really cool, like we don't know about it unless they show up and like give us a testimonial. But happily they do. So thank you to everyone who shows up in Discord or has written us via email with some of those stories. I'll start with one of my own stories, which is I didn't even know until until we shipped this Fulcra feature, and I'm looking at my own dashboard, that my Apple Watch is continuously monitoring the volume around me, right? Like literally, how loud is it? And I had a clue for this. Like every once in a while, the watch will give you a warning if it detects that you're in a really, really loud place. What I did not know is that actually I have a continuously updated time series of DBSPL in my environment all the time. Because this isn't surfaced by any watch app, but it is the kind of thing that shows up in my Fulcra data store because I have context installed on my phone. And so I'm displaying that next to my sleep data. And I can see how noise in the night affects my phase of sleep, which is wild, because this is probably affecting many, many people. But if it doesn't wake you up, you don't know that you're being affected. Or a pattern that I've noticed is actually I will wake up in the middle of the night because of some noise that stops by the time I'm fully conscious. So I have no idea that it was noise that woke me up, but I can see it the next morning when I go to the tape. So that is like a simple correlation. It was always there to be found, but was just hiding. And so it was super eye-opening when I saw it. Now getting into some customer stories, there are a whole bunch of actually variations on my story that are about debugging your sleep. Probably the biggest life upgrade that a Fulcra is unlocking for people has to do with debugging their sleep. And sometimes this is deliberate, so people will try new supplements or new habits. They'll record them in their Fulcra timeline, and then they'll see, they'll go to the week view and they'll see week over week. Okay, how am I trending? Something I had never heard of before was a user who, under the advice of his doctor, has been paying attention to specifically his ratio of REM to deep sleep. So this guy, as a matter of health, was trying to decrease core sleep and increase REM sleep and deep sleep together. So aiming for a 1-to-1 ratio, and the surprising driver that increased deep sleep in general and also raised REM sleep, so that these two were going up together, had to do with the timing, not just of eating, but the timing of eating specifically carbs. So I don't know if this generalizes, but if you want to do this investigation for yourself, the trick was if you're going to eat sweets, eat them before noon.
Okay.
Which I think is just great. and pay attention to your day over day deep sleep numbers and see if you get better deep sleep on days when you shift your glucose spikes to earlier in the day.
Okay, nice. And actually, I wouldn't mind just sticking on sleep for a bit because I find it super interesting. And it's one of those like health hacks or health improvements that seem to be beneficial across the board.
Yeah, right.
So from personal experience, I've experimented with taking some magnesium and zinc before bed. Nice. And especially on days where I exercise, it tends to have a good effect. But I've never actually measured it. So if I were to get into a hardware device to help, whether it be Apple Watch or a Ring or anything else, what would you recommend as something that's actually reliable to track, say, if I took a different magnesium blend to see if that would actually affect me differently?
Oh, cool. All right. So let me speak to my book here because I'm really proud of how we've done this. I believe that the state of the art in self-tracking and doing this kind of self-experimentation is layering passive monitoring that you set up and then you don't have to think about again, which you'll get from a device. The devices that I really like are Apple Watch or a Ring. And I must say, I love my smart bed. I'm using an 8 sleep bed, which is not only giving me cool sleep telemetry, but then is also keeping me cooler on my side of the bed than my wife, who prefers to sleep more warmly. So great little hack for marital bliss there. Uh, my devices are just streaming into my Fulcra data store. I don't have to think about it again. Um, and then you layer on top some deliberate monitoring. So by deliberate, I mean you set up some annotations so that you can keep track of what supplements you're taking, when, and then what the formulations are. So for in my case, for instance, I got a minor head injury, I got a concussion, and then Dave Asprey told me, dude, you need to dial up the creatine in a big way. So he put me on 10 milligrams of creatine twice a day. And so I started tracking that manually, like literally every time that I would take creatine, I would swipe the annotations in my context app on my phone. So I was recording the dosage and the exact timing. Um, and partly this was so that I would also share it with Dave and show him, look, I'm following your instructions. Um, and and then secondly, those habits were then showing up in my timeline for my weekly retro, and I'm looking at like the past week on Fridays. And I arranged the manually recorded data along with the passively recorded stuff, so I'm getting this full superset. And then like once you've dialed that in, then you can start playing with things like, okay, let's try doubling the dose this week. Let's have the dose this week. Let's change the timing of when we take it. And then you can get visualizations. Um, sometimes your meat space brain is all you need to do pattern recognition. Or for more subtle changes, might be time to whip out the Python notebook. So all of the data that is being collected by Fulcra is also available as nice clean time series with something called the Life API. And some of our users are using, Python notebook, sometimes just a Colab notebook in the cloud, loading our Python library on PyPy. Others have no idea what the words that I just said mean, but can connect a code generating AI to to the Life API and just instruct the model in English to make the calls that you need in order to um, look at your own data and interpret it.
Nice. So actually, I have a question for like the builders in the audience.
Yes.
Both the before and the after the Fulcra step in the flow.
Mhm.
What was your experience been working on integrating with devices to actually like collect and expose that data? Do you find there's a lot of workarounds needed? Like if they had a standardized API, would that make it easier for these aggregating services like Fulcrer to exist? Or how
Right.
could the best practices be on the collection end?
Oh man, there is so much nuance here. So as you might imagine, Whoop bands versus a Garmin smartwatch versus a Fitbit versus an Oura ring will all say record your heart rate, but in their own way. So and heart rate's actually an easy one. The people will get extra proprietary with the way in which they record HRV. So there are very subtle differences. And at Fulcra, we've just signed ourselves up for like dealing with all of these nuances. And it really feels like I wonder if this is what it felt like in the early days of Microsoft to be like on device driver support, where our jobs, it's almost like we're a firewall between people who just want to get things done and like figuring out the quirks of different device makers. So if we're doing our jobs right, we've figured out a lot of these quirks, and we're doing the ingest, and we're dealing with the difference in sample rates and the difference in the raw data, and sometimes the raw data actually changes, and what is in Apple Health today will not be what's in Apple Health tomorrow. We'll deal with all those quirks so that you can just have nice, clean time series, and you do not need to know anything about the difference between, these devices. One of the reasons why we think that's important is that most smart device makers aren't actually going to like be around for the entire length of your life.
Yep.
We've designed our data store to truly gather the data of your life for your entire lifetime and possibly beyond. Like I, for one, want to donate my data corpus to my heirs. I want my data to be unambiguously inheritable. So if some future descendant of mine wants to train a model on, grandpappy Michael's data, like they can. So we're thinking about data longevity at that scale. It is very unlikely that all of the wearables manufacturers that I've mentioned will survive as long as even I hope to survive. Which means that you're going to change vendors. This has happened while I've been working on Fulcra. I used to have a Hometic scale. Now I have a Withing scale. But I want a nice clean time series of my weight that just goes back several years and does not involve two different API calls just because like the vendor changed. So so we've managed a whole bunch of those quirks, and I feel really proud of our quirk handling. The other thing that is other people can do, anyone can do this, but I feel like we, by stepping into the breach, just give everyone a quality of life benefit. Is if you hit the Life API, you're getting fresh up to the minute data of everything without any extra work, right? So if you write, if you go to all the trouble to write a notebook that's going to analyze your step count or analyze, how your sleep relates to your supplements, and you just save that notebook on Colab, it's going to work today and it's going to work tomorrow and it's going to work a week from now. And you don't need to sit there and like do a new fresh export of your data up to that point. No, you should just be able to click rerun on the notebook and just get today's data. Just removing that friction removes the cost of trying an experiment, and that means you experiment more, which is really cool. Like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't share this story, but what the hell? I'm on a roll. I actually, okay, actually, no one should do this. This is terrible advice. I was having a discussion, air quotes discussion, with my wife about whether we were letting our room get warmer this past winter than we did the winter before, right? So in other words, she and I, we've been married a long time. We have a slight disagreement in our memory. Okay. She remembers it one way and I remember it another. And I realize, wait a minute, the temperature time series will be in my Fulcra data store. I can just look this up right now. And yeah, so loaded in a Colab notebook, which you can run Colab on your phone. This is doable. So I simply like made a graph like right there while we're like sitting and talking about this. I'm like, oh, I can just go to the tape. We can get the definitive answer. And I did, and it was nice. And my wife is game for these kinds of things. So it was all okay. I think maybe you should not always resolve all marital differences about memory, like quantitatively, empirically with data in a Python notebook. But it worked. I'm okay. I'm still married.
Nice. Yeah, you got to pick your battles sometimes, but having that as a backup option is always nice.
Yeah.
Actually, moving to the other side, say someone's building something that was going to process the people, leverage the Life API, or even just in general best practices. What have you found is good things to keep in mind when you're trying to process people's data in a way that respects their privacy, but at the same time can give them the insights that they need?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really great question. So and to ground the answer to this question, let me paint a picture of the future. I think that agentic AI is going to get better and better. I think code writing AI is going to get better and better. So I think that developers of all skill levels will end up incorporating more AI generated code into their work streams, just as a matter of like going faster. Like it doesn't even matter if you're good at code. Like if you have a helpful robot that is just able to kick things out really fast and it's reliable, then of course you're going to do that because then you can just achieve more. Let me also just acknowledge that we're not there yet, right? Like a lot of AI code generation is still like frustrating. But I am someone who thinks it's going to get better and better. What this means is we're increasingly going to have an intelligence on tap that is just able to indulge your random questions with throwaway code, um, to help you make any decision or indulge a question that you develop in the shower, you know, and this is broadly going to be a good thing. In fact, I think this is going to be an amazing thing. Um, but there are two ways in which this goes down. One is that in order for the AI to help you, it needs access to your data. And so you ship your data to the same place where the foundation model lives. And and this is obviously the vision of the future that some AI companies are pursuing, where they're increasingly making offers to people, which is like, we already host your email, like we already know this stuff about you, and look, we have a great model, let us help you. And in fact, you never have to leave the warm comfort of our walled garden. That's future number one. Future number two, the future that I'm hoping that Fulcra brings about, is one where you can temporarily grant access to an AI model or a runtime environment so that it gets only the data that it needs in order to answer your question or provide the help that you need. And otherwise, you can turn that knob back to the off position. And I really want to live in a future where individuals have that level of control. I don't think individuals are going to be able to control AI by controlling how capable it is or how smart it is. I just don't think that's going to work. I think the models are going to get smarter and smarter. And so we will not be able to control them by like keeping them artificially dumb. So how are we going to control them? Thinking like a hacker, I think the only control surface that is truly feasible is one where we can say, yes, you can access my data. And then we can change our mind for any reason or no reason at all and just be like, actually, no. You know, Hal, I'm going to open the pod bay doors on my own. Thank you very much. That's the future that Fulcra is built to support. So now with that foundation laid, I think that I think OAuth is awesome. I think that you want to sort of separate ingest, which you might want to always leave running, from access. These need to be independent processes. Ingest is most convenient when it's in the cloud because a lot of the data your life produces actually comes from the cloud in the first place. For instance, your calendars are probably stored on a cloud somewhere. If you want to make a copy for yourself, you can copy it all to your local laptop hard drive, but it probably just makes sense to have a cloud native store that's under your control. And so Fulcra exists for that. And then when you want to do analysis, you can either do it in the very cloud oriented way that I just described, or you just like have a Python notebook running in Colab and it's just doing OAuth to your Fulcra data store to pull down the data that you want. Or you make yourself a heavier weight local copy for the purpose of doing, I don't know, maybe some hardcore data science that you want to run, locally on your machine, in which case you're basically using your Fulcra data store as part of this, ETL pipeline that you're bringing into your analytics workspace, which maybe you're doing on your own, or maybe the way you're incorporating an AI is just like as a co-pilot to help you write the code that runs on your data. So you're not ever really sharing the data with the AI. You're just getting AI assistants to write the code to process the data locally. I want us being able to make individual decisions about exactly that. Like where do I want my jobs to run? What part of this do I want anyone to be able to see versus what do I want to keep completely private?
Oh, great. All right, a lot to unpack there. So I recently went on a trip and on 2 separate occasions talked to people who uploaded medical data, whether it was blood work or results from a surgery, into ChatGPT, got some advice, and were more informed for their conversation with doctors.
Right.
I'm not vouching for using ChatGPT as a replacement, but being able to pull in data, especially blood work or types of like very analytical stuff, it does tend to help.
Yeah.
But as soon as I brought up those stories, some people, they're like, why would you want to upload your personal, immutable medical data to these big companies? You never know who they're going to sell it to and whatnot. There's just been such a history of shady data protection in
Yeah.
the digital age that people are understandably worried.
Yeah.
Now, there's one company, Obsidian, that I use for notes, and they have their file over app principle where you
Right.
can just take your data, go to another service. And that was actually the trigger that made me move from Notion over to Obsidian.
Oh, nice.
Just yeah, those type of data control principles.
Yes.
Which I believe Fulcra is playing a vital role in the like AI data pipeline.
Right.
Do you see any missing pieces to be able to enable this like data on, data off switches, or is
Right.
Fulcra going to be the missing component that's needed?
And I haven't been asked this before, and I'm so pleased you asked because we can go super deep on this. I too love Obsidian, and I love that architectural principle. Like honestly, I now try to store as much of like my life as possible in Markdown. Like if I need to write to a file, I'm like, can we make this Markdown? Right.
Yep.
Which I love. Even kind of non-intuitive stuff. So I think I was a pretty early adopter of Mermaid, right? For like all the times when I want an illustration, but actually I want the primitives to be like made out of Markdown, right? So, thank you, code committers to like mermaid.js and to Obsidian for making this world possible. I like living in this world. Here's a reason why Fulcra had to be built different, if you will. Files as a concept basically comes from Xerox PARC. Like a bunch of the computing primitives that define our personal lives come from Xerox researchers who were creating metaphors based on 70s office culture, right? Desktop, file, folder. Now there are billions of computer users. There's at least a billion people who have a computer who have literally never seen a file folder, right?
Yep.
Like they've never seen the reference. So it's actually sort of crazy that we're stuck with the metaphor. Like it's not helping anyone understand the digital version. They're like, oh, I get it. It's just like my desktop at work. Like, what even is that?
Yeah.
Now, there are some fundamental limitations of this metaphor, which is why in enterprise computing, we're not stuck with it. For instance, in the enterprise, lots of us are using streaming data stores of various flavors. Like Kafka is beloved by many teams because it's incredibly useful. There is no Kafka for people. Like I have my choice of where to store files. I can store it locally on a disk. I can store it in Google Drive, iCloud, Dropbox, Drop. I have no such choice for how to store my like heart rate time series, right? Which is a continuously updating thing that if it's ever expressed in a file, it's very artificially expressed in a file with an artificial end date that probably corresponds to when I decided to do the export. This is just not a data type that is natively file oriented. And this is a solved problem in the enterprise. Why? Because enterprises have approximately since forever been multi-device, multi-platform, adopting different kinds of technology, some in the data center, right? Or the cloud, some on-prem. This has been normal in enterprise context for decades, and therefore there are enterprise tools that are meant to tie all this stuff together. And they'll have names sometimes like enterprise operating system, or in the old days, an ERP. There's a system you can plug all the other stuff into. Sometimes now this is called a data lakehouse. None of this exists for people. So we had to build the functional equivalent of a data lakehouse for ourselves. And this cannot be run off of our laptop in Markdown files because so many of these data types actually don't lend themselves to storage on block devices as files at all. So we had to dispense with that particular architectural choice of Obsidian, but we're in the same almost like spirit or culture where we want to give people complete control of their data and portability. So everything that you stream into your Fulcra data store you should be able to get out and and possibly take somewhere else, or just build your own cool like cloud store from scratch, or maybe even like, you know, run a private version of Fulcra that, you know, is just in your own cloud tenant, and you don't need us at all, or you cut us off from, you know, access to your key store, and you're the only one who can decrypt your data. Like that's the level of individual control that we want the future to consider actually normal. So we're trying to, you know, normalize right now. Um, and I think that you can make this into a business today in 2025 in a way that I think you couldn't in 2015, because there is an increasing acknowledgement that individuals should be able to pull their data out of the an application silo, and, you know, there should be some data checkout process. So in some ways, Fulcra is a recipient of that like vibe shift. For instance, I am now always streaming my location data into Fulcra because I'm running the Fulcra app context, which is just, you know, making a little recording about where I am, so that I have a way to look up my past location history. Well, I now actually have years of location history in my Fulcra data store because I went through the Google checkout process to get my old Google Maps timeline data, and then uploaded that to my Fulcra data store, and and my awesome Fulcra colleagues wrote a little parser that now works for everyone. So anyone who goes through the Google Maps takeout process can upload that file to their Fulcra data store, and it gets parsed and just becomes a seamless location time series that in my case goes back to like 2009, which is
Oh,
super
nice.
cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the part of running this business is actually hearing from people who show up in Discord and are like, hey, can you figure out how to take in my lab tests, or my this or my that? And you know, we want to eventually absorb everything. So we love getting those kinds of requests.
Oh, super cool. I can only imagine the possibilities. Along the lines of de-siloing the data and making
Yes.
sure that the data that is about you can be exposed to where you want it,
Yep.
something comes up with control of data is the monetization, where maybe I don't want to just use it from one app to another app, but I actually
Yep.
want to say, okay, I will allow my Spotify data to be
Right.
sold in order to help train this model or something.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on moving forward with the monetization of data?
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think that the as a business nerd, I have some skepticism about this as a business model, that I would love to share with you. Because in my last company, fighting off botnets, we got a lot of exposure to how advertising works. And the reason why we got that exposure is that there were a lot of bad actors in advertising who were trying to goose their ad revenue by getting bots to like click on ads. Um, so this was a major monetization mechanism for a bunch of botnet operators, is like creating fake traffic. So in the pursuit of our mission to crush that, we learned a lot about how data monetization works for ad targeting. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's very, very clear that there's tremendous value in the data that makes ad targeting work better. And so many, many people think, gosh, the only person who's not getting paid for this data is like the consumer. Maybe we should start a business where the consumer gets a piece of this action. And nothing's stopping you. That there's nothing wrong with that business model, except that the amount of money that advertisers are willing to pay for the data is a big number in the aggregate, but a relatively small amount of money per person, such that the only people who are truly motivated by like the 20 cents or the dollar, you know, the dollar figures that are really up for grabs here are like not people who advertisers are necessarily like super enthusiastic about reaching. You know what I mean? Like if you are going to change your behavior because of a $1.80 like incentive scheme, um, there aren't a lot of advertisers that are like, um, you know, fighting amongst themselves to advertise to you, you know? So there's something here where um, giving people the ability to monetize their data by contributing it in a big data pool is is like non-zero sum, like everyone would benefit. But I'm not sure that it's going to bring about the micro payment utopia that people envision, just because the bid ask spread, if you will, is too high, right? Like the amount that the buyers are willing to pay for that data is not a very big amount, such that it actually motivates a lot of sellers to be like, oh, sure, I'll sell my Spotify listen data in exchange for that reward. Like the rewards are too small. So I think the way we get there is less about monetization, and it's probably more about trading. It's probably more about getting a better experience. So, for instance, I would be willing to share my watch data across multiple streaming services if it just meant that I got better recommendations about what to watch next. Like, I'd be willing to maybe share my Spotify history with YouTube or vice versa, um, just to have a better recommendation algorithm experience, right? Like, do you need to pay me in the form of money, or can you pay me in the form of a better, more finely tuned experience? Right now, we can't even explore those things because these data sets are not fungible. If there's some way that Fulcra uh, can be an unlock there and help people really trade their data to just have a better time, right? Just waste less time explaining themselves, then uh, that that's an opportunity that I really want to lean into.
Have you seen anything or have any optimism around the idea of a bring your own algorithm where we're able to try to like take all this data in and then say, I want it to be processed in this way to present with me this content? Has there
Yeah,
been any movement
right.
there that you've heard of?
Oh my God. Uh, no, I have not seen anything as that. I've not seen anything awesome yet, but I'm confident it's going to happen. Here's the level of generality that I think we should all be working towards, which is recommendation algorithms right now have the wrong goal, because the goal is to keep you on that platform, right? Like the purpose of the TikTok algorithm is to show me another thing that forestalls the time when I stop looking at TikTok. And that's the same for Instagram, for X, for a lot of the state of the art in recommendations. Then if we look at e-commerce recommendations, it's always like, show me the next thing that I'm going to buy on this exact platform, right? So uh, we can think of each one of these recommendation algorithms as being, let's call it, platform greedy. They're only informed by the data on the platform, and their only goal is to keep their user spending time or money on that particular platform. A recommendation algorithm that actually serves you generalizes in a different way, which is, what is the next thing in your life to pay attention to, right? The true limited, the ultimate limited good in all of our lives is our attention. A recommendation algorithm that truly served us would be saying, here's the thing you should pay attention to next, with the goal being your overall wellness, happiness, effectiveness, right? Um, we want to serve your personal goals. And I think we're going to live long enough to live in a world that works like that. And I think it's going to come about because of agentic intelligence. A personal AI running a personal recommendation algorithm can be serving you and making recommendations that you can think of as essentially multimodal. Like, given everything that my personal AI, a guardian angel AI, can see about what hooks me on TikTok, what what work emails I have like struggled in the compose window, right? Like pay attention to number of words relative to like how long I had the compose window open, right? Would be a really interesting metric of like, I'm, I'm churning on how to write this message, right? Um, versus, the, the things in my inbox, time spent reading individual items, take all of those as inputs. And when I reach a stopping point, when I finally click send on that email, what is the next thing I should look at? Maybe it really should be, honestly, a hilarious cat video on TikTok, right? Like, like, don't turn me into a ultra productive robot. Sometimes I do want to look at cat videos. So it is entirely possible that cat videos really is the thing that should float up to like my top recommendation right now. Um, but the I I want to live in a world in which that algorithm is aimed at what is literally next best for me across every one of my attention options instead of what's the next email to show me to like keep me running superhuman.
Yeah, the ability to have an active firewall for information would be incredibly cool. One thing you mentioned was having your location data and the heart rate data being synced up, and I think that's awesome. There's more of a trend now to get these always-on listening devices that people can wear to record the conversation.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when data collection goes from just the individual to their surrounding environment as well?
I'm excited about this and I want to raise a caution. I'll start with why I'm excited. Wearable listening devices right now are generally offering their users a value prop around retrieval. So it's usually about remembering stuff. Now, let's think deeply about exactly how that happens. That basically happens through search. If I'm collecting a bunch of transcripts, in fact, I often have meeting robots showing up in my meetings to help me remember things that are said, but I only make use of it in this very particular circumstance in life where I'm like, oh yeah, what did I talk with Mike about? When was that meeting? It was like last week. All right, I'm going to go to my, repo of where the transcripts are, do a little search, and then have a memory jog. I think always on recording can do so much more. For instance, imagine a personal swear jar. Okay, like imagine you have this goal, which is like I married a farm girl, and I used to curse like a sailor, and my farm girl wife not really into it. So I had to make this conscious decision to change my behavior and and pull my like joyful profanity out of my life. Um, and um, I did so. Um, that's a behavior change that it's really helpful to track. It's hard to self-track how many times you've said any particular word at all. So if you have an always-on robot that's just keeping track of that and then floating it up to you as a number at the end of the day, you can see, am I trending down? Am I trending up? Now apply that to something more sophisticated, which is sentiment analysis. So would you like to know at the end of the day how positive you were? How generous were you with your compliments? How many times were you critical? How many times did you lose your cool? Are you trending up or down in optimism versus pessimism? Um, this is the amazing kind of self-telemetry that is possible when you have just passive collection in words. And if you can see that, like let's say on your Fulcra dashboard, or you see that in some sort of reporting scenario, it's just teaching you something about yourself without you launching a search, you know? So I think the search directed ways in which people are using Otter or Fireflies or Friend or Limitless are cool. It's a good anchor set of use cases, but actually the way that this ambient collection can take things from subconscious experience into conscious experience is like mostly untapped. And so I'm extremely excited about it. The caution that I want to raise is um, is around social conventions of consent. So like right now I'm tracking my location history and I don't have to ask anyone's permission. Like I want a perfect record of where I spend my time because I'm curious about that and it'll be ever more valuable over time. Like, um, whereas if I'm wearing an always on recording device, it's capturing everything that I'm saying and everything that also anyone around me is saying. And it's like a hassle. It doesn't even seem to be really feasible that I like go around with like a consent form, like BTW, I'm going to capture some of the things that you said. Are you cool with this? Um, so, so there's going to need to be an evolution of social norms to like manage this. I think the upside is so high. The upside is so high of computer augmented memory that we should figure out how to do this. I think we will because it has such a life upgrade possibility. There's got to be some room between the social norms of today and like the weird ones that show up in Snow Crash with the gargoyles, that we should be able to find some middle path based on just incremental development that we're doing right now. So fingers crossed. I don't know what that answer is going to be because it's going to be an emergent social phenomenon, but I do think that ultimately we'll just end up having a set of norms that manage this in the same way that we have sets of norms around, what time of day it's cool to call someone on the phone and what time it's not, right? Like the AT&T didn't come up with those norms, right? Like Alexander Graham Bell didn't come up with those norms. Like we socially evolved to kind of consensus norms, and I think that's what's going to happen with technology like this.
Yeah, I believe it's limitless pendant, and if it's a different voice in the wearer, it'll redact it. But I don't know if that's common knowledge, and I don't know if that's going to be the step it needs.
Yeah, right.
I feel like we could talk all day, but last question for me to keep this reasonable. One thing that I am concerned about with this hyper optimization with AI is there's a certain line of agency where people above it will be able to use this as a tool and be aware of the usage, but people below it will see the benefits of it and become very reliant on the AI. Where do you see us becoming too dependent on these systems to like make decisions for us versus still having the autonomy that we get the benefit from?
Right? Okay. So first, I think we should just acknowledge how surprisingly theoretical this question is. Like, if you would ask me about how AI like is going to play out, if you'd asked me this, several years ago, I'd be thinking, oh man, like this could be very empowering, but then end up creating these like incredible dependency conditions. Just seemed like the obvious prescription, but I don't know how it's playing out in your life. The way it's playing out in my life is, across everyone that I know, who tend to be like really smart, super technically literate people, there's still a minority that is incorporating AI tools into their lives right now and is becoming like more knowledgeable, getting more of their random questions answered, more productive in a wide variety of ways. And then everyone else that is like generating the occasional, Studio Ghibli picture, but is otherwise like not making use of these tools. It's blowing my mind. Like what I am seeing is that super high agency people are consciously figuring out workflow adaptations in order to get more out of these tools, changing their behavior and changing their output. They're the highest agency people that I know are like becoming AI super adopters, and low agency people are just like almost ignoring what is happening. So maybe we're just wrong about how this ends up augmenting everyone's lives, because in imagining that we're creating these dependencies, we're actually like, isn't that the imagination of low agency people who are like, oh, they're just using these crutches instead of learning how to do this stuff themselves? And that's just not the track we're on at all. Like for some reason, very counterintuitively, it's the highest agency people that are figuring out how to use these tools, and the people who want crutches, I think, are trying out ChatGPT as a crutch, and then getting frustrated and not getting a lot of benefit, right? Or the making random copy paste errors. Like all of us sophisticates are like, That's a weirdly large number of M dashes coming from this email from
Yeah.
Bob, who I don't previously remember using a lot of M dash. But like, whereas the super adopters are not making M dash mistakes, right? Like
Mhm.
this so-called like high taste testers are like, I hate these M dashes. I'm going to add some custom instructions to make this stuff go away. Right. We all did that like last month.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, this was a blast. I learned a
It
lot.
really
Really
was.
fun talking to you. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like the audience to know?
Oh, right. So if I've intrigued you about what we're building at Fulcra, come try it out, and especially come hang out with us on Discord. It's a fun scene. We want to be told what to build next, and we want to hear about your cool use cases. So seek us out at fulcra.ai. Give the software a whirl, and and build with us. You can shape our direction, because this is still a small but intense scene. So yeah, come on by.
Absolutely. We'll link everything down below. All right, Michael, we'll talk soon.
This is fabulous. Thank you.